That's right. And Chris Christie, by the way, he's in.
It's happening.
New news. So while we're talking about politics and elections, Chris Christie's super PAC has been formed. He is actually set to announce his candidacy in New Hampshire next week. I mean, the details from Axios about how he wants to be, his pitch to voters, I think it's laughable.
What are the details? What is his pitch to voters?
That he wants to be, I think the word they used was jolly.
Okay, all right. I like jolly.
Yeah, I mean, but Chris Christie, I just think it's hard. Yeah, here it is. That Christie thinks, I can't take this seriously.
Being joyful.
Being joyful. And a hopeful note aimed at America's, quote, exhausted majority, being authentic, a happy warrior who speaks his mind, and running a national race, a, quote, non-traditional campaign that is highly focused on earned media, mixing it up in the news cycle, and engaging Trump. That is code for we don't have any freaking money, because nobody's going to put money behind Chris Christie, because he flamed out, obviously, in 2016, and it has even more way more issues with the Republican voter base right now in 2023. This is also bad news for any Republican who hopes to have a binary Trump versus DeSantis race.
Oh, that ship has sailed a long time ago.
People will still say, for instance, we expect that folks will learn from 2016 and dip out of the race earlier when they realize that their candidacy doesn't have any wings, and they'll stop the bleeding so that they can, if it's Trump versus Pence or Trump versus DeSantis, which is probably a more likely outcome, it can just be Trump versus DeSantis. And it's more of like a Hillary-Bernie race where those votes aren't split up in so many different ways. But the more people you have entering, the less chance of that happening.
Yeah, and it's a sign of DeSantis' weakness that so many people decided to jump in the race to be the Trump alternative. Because if he had really appeared like a juggernaut, like, oh, this guy, there's no way he could be knocked off, then you would have discouraged some of these folks from getting in the race. And also the fact that, the donors didn't like some of his answers on Ukraine. They didn't like the 6-week abortion ban, to our comments previously. And so I actually do think Christie will have at least some funding behind him. He's set up, some of his aides have set up a super PAC to back him. And his pitch previously, now he's leaning into like, oh, I'm going to be the joyful, happy warrior and national campaign, and et cetera. Previously, I think he had a more honest assessment of what his goal was, which is like, I'm going to do to Trump what I did to Marco last time around. Yeah. I'm good at being the pugilist. I'm good at fighting. I'm not afraid of the bully. Like, I'll go in there and I'll mess him up. And that'll give an opportunity for other people to be able to succeed, whether it's Christie or DeSantis or someone else. Do I think that's going to work? Do I think Christie has like that kind of traction with the Republican base? No, not necessarily. But I do think that that is an appealing and sensible enough pitch that he's going to get some funders. And definitely, if he's launching, he already has some funders behind him. You only need one billionaire to like float your super PAC in order for you to be able to get in there and do your thing. Now, part of the problem for him is that, unlike what he was able to do with Marco, number one, Trump is much more skilled political player on a debate stage than Marco Rubio is. But also, I don't think Trump's going to debate. So you're not likely to have that moment where you can make him look foolish in real time. And that is what Chris Christie, I mean, you guys, I don't know if you remember, but when he was coming to prominence and when Republicans were absolutely loving this guy, is he would do these town halls and he would like yell at teachers and, very like he embodied some of that, like, we just want someone who's going to fight energy before Trump came along. And part of what went wrong for him in the 2016 race is that Trump sort of stole his spotlight in terms of the abrasive lane that he was planning to occupy. So he is, I've always thought Chris Christie is genuinely politically talented. I just don't think he has credibility with the Republican base at this point. But, one of his allies who started this super PAC, he says Mr. Christie is willing to confront the hard truths that currently threaten the future of the Republican Party. Yeah, right. Now more than ever, we need leaders that have the courage to say not what we want to hear, but what we need to hear. So he's almost on like a kamikaze mission, I think, to try to bloody Trump and make it possible that someone else could succeed. He's also been, though, critical of Ron DeSantis, so it's not like he's in there just to do the dirty work of Ron DeSantis either.
Yeah, he criticized Ron DeSantis from his left on Disney, or from his like libertarian side on Disney, which is just, I don't know why Republicans think from Nikki Haley to Chris Christie to like Asa Hutchinson. I don't know why anybody thinks. Yeah, Trump, that's right. That's the elephant in the room. I don't know why anybody thinks that's a winning campaign strategy. But I think with Chris Christie, New Hampshire is actually where he had that moment against Marco Rubio on the debate
I
stage.
didn't remember that.
And you can see how, the pugilism and the more centrism of somebody like Chris Christie, New Hampshire really should be his bread and butter. But that point about courage, I agree this is a kamikaze mission. I don't think he thinks he's going to be president. I think he probably thinks maybe there's a chance, so I might as well run, take down Trump in the process, and have fun on TV, which is the earned media aspect of his campaign
which he
strategy.
definitely enjoys.
He's got a former Romney staffer. I mean, it's not a recipe for success with today's Republican Party. And his courage message, he is going to have a hell of a time making that pitch when I think he has really covered himself in not so much glory. It's more embarrassing the way what is that media report about how he went to get Trump's McDonald's orders for him?
Well, he's kind of pleased nobody.
Exactly.
I mean, you've got, the Liz Cheneys of the world, there's a constituency for them, become the resistance hero and be consistent and strident in your opposition to Trump. Christie's been all over the map, after he nuked Rubio, which was much to Trump's benefit. He then drops out and endorses Trump. He gets the McDonald's, does that dance for a while.
Sucks up.
I actually think the breaking point was, I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, was when Trump was using Christie for debate prep, and they were in a hotel room together and whatever. And it turns out Trump, which he probably knew at the time, had COVID. And Chris Christie got COVID from Trump from helping him with his debate prep at that time. Chris Christie almost died from COVID. I mean, he's overweight. He was in the hospital. It was very serious and very grave. And reportedly, Trump, when he called him, it wasn't like, oh my God, are you okay? I'm so sorry. It was like, you're not going to tell anyone that I gave it to you, right? It seems like that was the real personal breaking point for Chris Christie. But even if you're but he's not the resistance hero that Liz Cheney is, because he was backing Trump all the way up until that moment and carrying water for him and apparently getting his McDonald's and whatever else was required. And now he's completely lost the Republican base because he's been willing to criticize Trump and made a hard break from him. So it's hard to see what his constituency really is, even though, again, I do think that the man, just on a raw political talent level, I've always thought he's very talented. I think if he had been the Republican nominee in 2012, I think they would have had a much better shot against Barack Obama. But it's hard to see what his lane is here. Emily, one question I have for you is do you see a vulnerability for Trump? If you were advising DeSantis or any of these other cast of characters, is there an area where the Republican base is I'm not sure, that you could press on, that you could potentially, move them off of him? Or is he just still the sort of beating heart of the Republican Party and very hard to supplant, barring some sort of external factor that you have no control over?
Yeah, I was talking to someone about this yesterday because every little attack, I think other Republicans, the DeSantis camp included, thinks that they end up having on Donald Trump. It's well, listen, the guy isn't running on policy. He does run on some of these really broad policy issues. His tune on Ukraine, for instance, that's sort of fits with his broad narratives on foreign policy. He runs in one position on immigration. He runs in one position on the media. And, those are kind of policy flanks, but they're not specific. And so, yeah, Trump, getting attacked on specific policies or things he may have said, you never have him. I'm sorry, but you never have him. It's never going to happen. But I think he does come in with one serious disadvantage, which is having been president of the United States and losing. That takes the wind out of his sails of the kind of winner argument, which is why he clings to the election fraud argument, the lie about a stolen election. I think that's why, which was not stolen. I think that's why, I think that's why he really clings to that narrative in particular, is because being a loser is toxic for Donald Trump. And then also coming into office, not building the wall, he has a lot of things that he said he was going to do. He'll say it was because, he was taken out of office by a stolen election. But I still think that's, even if you think the election was rigged, not stolen, I think that's a really tough argument to make for Trump. So that's definitely a disadvantage. And that's one thing he's never had as a presidential candidate before, is that he lost. And this is the time to test it out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, he's made it very difficult because unfortunately, overwhelming majority of the Republican base believes the Stop the Steal stuff, so they don't see him as a loser. They think he was robbed. But I do see DeSantis trying to sort of like gesture at that when he's talking about, hey, maybe we should have done mail-in voting. Maybe that would have worked out for you better than what actually happened, which is just like indisputably true.
Yeah, and that's where Republicans are on this. Most like activist Republicans or people in D.C. agree with that at this point.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.